Good evening, viewers. You're watching To The Point. I'm Preeti Chaudhary. Bhay and Chinta, words which were used by the government today. For anyone who's living in Delhi, you've gone beyond that. Not very few in Delhi would not know somebody today who's in a hospital struggling to breathe. So many of us today woke up with news of colleagues who had passed away because of COVID, because they could have been saved, but they did not get that necessary remdesivir or that oxygen which they needed to. I want to quickly cut across to the very latest coming in, because our duty right now is to give out information and to ask for accountability. I'm going to give out a list of hospitals right now which are running out of oxygen in the national capital. Out of oxygen, exhausted completely, are 6 hospitals, viewers. The Shanti Mukund Hospital has no oxygen right now. It's surviving only on cylinders. Saroj Hospital is exhausted where oxygen is concerned. Tirath Ram Shah Hospital, there is no oxygen there. The Commonwealth Games, the makeshift COVID center, viewers, which was only put into place yesterday, there is no oxygen there as well. The Rathi Hospital has no oxygen. It's only working on oxygen supplied by the Delhi police. Every 2 hours, the Rathi Hospital is putting out a tweet, viewers, thanking the Delhi police that certain cylinders have been bought in. The Santom Hospital, there is no oxygen. Burari Hospital has only 7 hours of oxygen left. DDU, 6 hours of oxygen left. Dr. Ambedkar Hospital, only 4 hours of oxygen left. The GTB Hospital has only 8 hours of oxygen. The Rajiv Gandhi Hospital has 11 hours of oxygen. Ambedkar Nagar does have 1 day of oxygen, while the BLK Hospital has only 4 hours of oxygen. The Holy Family, only 2.5 hours of oxygen left. Max Patparganj, the Max Hospital, which had approached the Delhi High Court right now, has only the reserve of 4 hours of liquid oxygen. Balaji, 5 hours. St. Stephen's Hospital, 18 hours. Gangaram, 20 hours. Max Shalimar Bagh, 18 hours. This is what it looks like. And these are hospitals which some of them are only COVID hospitals. How are these patients going to survive? I want to cut across right now to what the Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi wrote a letter to the Health Minister asking, viewers, and if you hear it, you know, that's the sad part. The Deputy Chief Minister is asking the Health Minister of the country to give paramilitary forces to man the tankers which are coming in from the bordering state of Haryana, because Delhi says that Haryana is not letting in the cylinders to come in. The citizens collateral, both led down by the state and the centre. Listen in.
उत्तर प्रदेश में मोदी नगर में उत्तर प्रदेश पुलिस और उत्तर प्रदेश के अधिकारियों ने वहां से डिलीवरी नहीं आने दी। कल उत्तर प्रदेश से सुचारू सिस्टम चला तो हरियाणा के अधिकारी वहां के प्लांट्स में जाके बैठ गए, उन्होंने वहां से नहीं जाने दी। अब क्योंकि पुलिस वहां की इस्तेमाल हो रही है दूसरे दिल्ली को ऑक्सीजन रोकने में, तो केंद्र सरकार से मेरा रिक्वेस्ट है कि भले ही आपको पैरामिलिट्री फोर्सेज लगानी पड़े, भले ही आपको ऑक्सीजन टैंकर के साथ में पैरामिलिट्री फोर्सेज लगा के उन प्लांट्स में ऑक्सीजन भरवानी पड़े, लेकिन ये आपको इंटरवीन करना पड़ेगा, वरना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा संभालना। और ऑक्सीजन को लेके जो जंगल राज पिछले 3 दिन से चल रहा है वो और आगे बढ़ेगा और स्थिति बहुत भयानक हो सकती है।
मैंने हरियाणा के जो प्लांट्स हैं उनके ऊपर अधिकारियों को बिठा दिया, पुलिस को बिठा दिया कि पहले हम हरियाणा की जो सप्लाई है वो पूरी करेंगे, क्योंकि हम पर ये भी दबाव डाला जा रहा है कि हम दिल्ली को दें। अगर हमारे पास बचेगी हम देंगे, हमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, लेकिन पहले हमारी प्रायोरिटी हरियाणा की है।
Each one for him or herself, viewers. That is what it's come down to. States at literal war over oxygen, going at each other, asking for paramilitary force. This is what we've come down to where the national capital is concerned. But I would want our viewers to hear in to the doctors who are manning hospitals, which 6 hospitals in Delhi have run out of oxygen. Listen to one of them, who is right now the head of the Shanti Mukund Hospital. Listen in to him.
It will be very deplorable condition, very unfortunate condition. We probably, you see, we as a doctor, we as a hospital, we are supposed to give life. If we cannot give them oxygen even, what is the situation? When patient comes to, patient will die. Patient will die. We know they are trying to help, but there is no oxygen, sir. There is no oxygen. We know this. We know, everybody knows it. Even government is trying to help us. But ultimately, oxygen is to be generated and supplied.
सारे हॉस्पिटल्स में दिल्ली के और दिल्ली के बाहर भी ऑक्सीजन की बहुत शॉर्टेज है और ऑक्सीजन हम लोगों को मिल नहीं रही है। पेशेंट जो कोविड के आ रहे हैं हमारे पास, वो मैक्सिमम सिक आ रहे हैं जिनको ऑक्सीजन की ज़रूरत है। अगर ऑक्सीजन नहीं है तो ये क्राइसिस है, ऑक्सीजन मिल नहीं रही है, ये क्राइसिस है। और हॉस्पिटल्स वाले बेबस हैं बिकॉज पेशेंट आ रहे हैं, पेशेंट अपनी तरफ ठीक है, हॉस्पिटल अपनी तरफ ठीक है और सप्लाई वाले सप्लाई नहीं कर पा रहे, वो अपनी तरफ से शायद इसलिए ठीक है कि उनकी प्रोडक्शन इतनी नहीं हो पा रही जितनी कंजम्पशन है। अब हमारे पास सिर्फ 1 घंटे की ऑक्सीजन बची है।
आज बहुत ही ज्यादा शॉर्टेज है। हमें कहा गया कि अगले 36 घंटे बाद सप्लाई मिलेगी। मतलब किसी हॉस्पिटल में 4 घंटे की, किसी में 7 घंटे की, किसी में 5 घंटे की ऑक्सीजन है। इससे ज्यादा हमारे पास नहीं है। हम पूरी रात से ऑक्सीजन वालों से बात कर रहे हैं। सुबह से हमारे फोन यही हो रहे हैं कहीं से मिल जाए, क्योंकि अब हमने एडमिशन बिल्कुल स्टॉप कर दिया। हम नया मरीज इसलिए नहीं ले रहे क्योंकि हमारे पास ऑक्सीजन नहीं है। जो है कम से कम हम उन्हें तो बचा सके। हम किसी की जान से नहीं खेलना चाहते और हमारे लिए इस टाइम मरीज की जान बहुत ऊपर है। हमें किसी तरीके से ऑक्सीजन की जरूरत है। ऑक्सीजन मिल जाए तो हो सकता है हम कई लोगों की जान बचा सकें।
Viewers, let the words of these doctors burn a hole in the heart, if there is a heart, or in the administration's memory space of where things stand in the national capital, both state and centre responsible for pushing the citizens of Delhi to this. The Delhi High Court, viewers, also stepped in, and I want to, we were looking through the order, the copy there, and the observations, in fact, and we pulled out the most scathing. The Delhi High Court told the centre today, beg, borrow, steal, but get citizens oxygen. This is coming from the Delhi High Court. But what is it? Why is it that Delhi is left breathless, viewers? Let's take you through this graph. Why is Delhi breathless? How much oxygen does Delhi actually require? Usually, the usual demand of Delhi, viewers, in terms of oxygen is 378 metric tons. How much is the current demand estimated to? The Delhi government says in the COVID crisis it needs 700 metric tons. As of yesterday, the centre did allocate Delhi 480 metric tons. The Delhi government says it's only on paper that Delhi, as of 21st April, yesterday, only got 90 metric tons. How much of truth is there in this? We're going to cut across to our panelists, but I want to quickly get an update from my colleague Milan. Milan, the last count was 6 hospitals in Delhi had run out of oxygen. Some of them barely left with half hour of oxygen supply. What's the current status?
Well, Preeti, it's not just these 6, but even Fortis in Haryana has now taken out a press release to say that even they are running out of oxygen. And it's not just a crisis in Delhi, but it's across. And there is a squabble between the Delhi and the Haryana government over supply of oxygen. We also know that the Inox plant in Modi Nagar is also supplying oxygen. But the current status of how the CEO of Shanti Mukund Hospital broke down while speaking, he was asking for supplies from Inox, and this is a major issue because some of the hospitals that are bigger in nature, Preeti, are still being supplied under government pressure. But what is happening to those hospitals that are 200 bedded, lesser beds than the 501 who are not getting oxygen supply? Half of their patients are COVID patients, but there are also severe cardiac patients as well as cancer patients these hospitals are treating. And that's the real question. Will Delhi continue to grasp for air, and how long will this continue?
Right. I appreciate you joining us, Milan. Let's take it to the people responsible. I have Atishi, who's joining me right now as a representative of the Delhi government. I have Gopal Agarwal from the Bharatiya Janata Party representing the government. Come to the state's stake first. Atishi, wasn't the Delhi government caught napping? The CWG unit, which you put together again, has run out of oxygen. Why were all of them dismantled only to be put back again? And where does the current crisis of oxygen stand?
Preeti, a lot of these hospitals, a lot of these quarantine centers and the extensions we had done to the various hospitals, once the wave in September had subsided, there was reason to cut back on them precisely because the space and the doctors needed to be used for other purposes. However, the expansion of our institutions, the expansion of our hospitals, the expansion of hospital beds To be able to do that on a short notice was always possible, and Delhi government has expanded its beds 3 times in the last 1 month. So we have a 300% increase. However, the nature of this second wave of COVID, and this is not a question of the central government, the state government, in fact, even scientists, statisticians, medical experts, no one predicted the extent to which the third wave would come. The number of patients is 4 times or 5 times almost as many as we have had in the previous 3 waves in Delhi. So yes, all health infrastructure has been pushed to a limit. But what we are seeing now in the last few days with this crisis of oxygen is extremely worrying, because what we are seeing is now that neighboring states, especially Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, you must remember that Delhi does not produce its own oxygen. So all of Delhi's hospitals are getting their supplies either from plants in UP or from plants in Haryana. Now the Haryana government and the UP government are not letting this supply through. On your show itself, you just run the bite of the Haryana Home Minister and Health Minister, Mr. Anil Rich, who openly came out yesterday and said कि मैंने तो अपने अफसर बिठा दिए हैं हर प्लांट पे, जब तक हरियाणा की सप्लाई नहीं जाएगी तब तक कहीं और से नहीं जाएगा. It was at that very moment that there were 300 patients in St. Stephen's Hospital and they did not have any supply of oxygen left. You had more than 500 patients in Apollo Hospital getting supplies from that Lind plant in Faridabad that almost ran out of oxygen last night. Apollo Hospital had an ICU running on oxygen cylinders. This has probably never happened in the history of any large government or private hospital in Delhi. So really the centre needs to step forward and ensure coordination between states. Because this is not a question of Aam Aadmi Party or BJP or Delhi government or the central government. It is the responsibility of the central government to ensure coordination between states and to ensure that every state gets the quota of oxygen that is designated for it.
All right, Mr. Agarwal, I want you to step in and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. On paper, the government, which is the central government, says that Delhi has 480 metric ton of oxygen, which is given to Delhi. However, Delhi's demanded 700. But as of yesterday, I believe only 90 metric tons of oxygen was released to Delhi. So on paper, do we have a different number? And in Delhi, are we getting in a different number, which is far, far less than what is required?
Preeti, we have to understand what is the problem here. It is about the management. And how do you manage when there is a demand-supply gap? The central government, in the overall country basis, has allocated 7,822 metric tons, and the demand is total 6,785 metric tons. Now, if the state government have suddenly rose up and said this demand has to be met, and their buck starts just by asking that we need this much, give us suddenly, and now they say we have demanded, center is not giving, that is not going to happen. Ultimately, it has to be managed by them. And central government just cannot, if you suddenly say on 20th April and 21st April that I need 700 metric ton, and then you say today only supply it. It is not like that. You need to have understanding about the storage capacity, transportation problem. The center can only judge and control the overall supply. If it has to be, so yesterday I tell you what happened was, from Uttar Pradesh, I live in Noida, lot of production from Uttar Pradesh in Noida particularly was allocated to Delhi. Now there is a shortage in Uttar Pradesh. So can Delhi government can say, I am the only government which is, Delhi is the only place which is in problem. But what about other problems? So it is about the center has to manage everything. And there has to be a uniform command. Because Delhi government is not acting at all in a unified, justified and manner. They are just saying, we demand this much, we need this much. I know they need it. But why didn't they anticipate? You go into the health ministry report, the level of preparedness, 3-4 months, it was clearly in the public domain. When it went to, there are 2 epicenters, Maharashtra and Delhi. You have to identify what is the problem. I know now it's a question of history, but ultimately putting this every blame, it will take time. What they were doing if AIMS can start up a plant in.
All right, I'd like to go back, sir.
Why?
Sir, with your permission, I'd like to go back to Atishi. And Atishi, 15th of this month, 15th of April, the Chief Minister of Delhi holds a press conference, says all is well. We have beds, we have capacity, we have oxygen. Didn't the Delhi government see it coming?
Preeti, the BJP spokesperson has just said that the Delhi government says that we immediately want 700 metric tons. Number one, that is not the case. The demand for oxygen has increased because of the constant increase in the caseload, which, as the central government also knows, neither they predicted, neither we predicted, nor did any scientists predict as to how many cases would be coming into Delhi and the speed at which the cases would increase, number one.
Take your share of the blame.
Let the 700 tons go.
So let's go one by one. Let her finish. I'm coming to you. Please make some. Madam, make your point. Madam, make your point. I'll go back to him for a rebuttal.
If you have allocated 480 tons and you are not even giving us 100 metric tons, then this is not Delhi's fault. The center has allocated us 480 metric tons per day. Now, this is the question. Why is at least that not being supplied? Today, there is a crisis. Forget increasing it to 700 metric tons. The very 480 that the center has allocated, not even 100 metric tons reached yesterday. Because of the crisis that is being created by the Haryana government, by the Uttar Pradesh government. Who is going to manage this? We have no control over the Haryana government. We have no control over the Uttar Pradesh government. It is the central government which will have to step in.
Right, okay. Now, Mr. Agarwal, this will spiral because what Delhi is saying today in Haryana, Fortis is saying that the Rajasthan government has to give us the oxygen and we are not getting our supply. Sir, but I want to ask you one basic question because the show is Delhi-centric. On paper, the government says 480 metric tons of oxygen is going to be allocated to Delhi. Why is it that Delhi has only got 90 metric tons till now, sir? Which is yesterday, as of yesterday.
Preeti, you have to understand what happened. Yesterday, Uttar Pradesh was allocated Delhi. Uttar Pradesh quota was given to Delhi, and some oxygen was transferred from Uttar Pradesh to Delhi because of the crisis situation which was brought into by the situation in Delhi. And the Uttar Pradesh was allocated from Bihar. Now the oxygen will take 6 to 7 days to arrive in Uttar Pradesh. So the thing we have to understand, there is a transportation requirement. There has to be a requirement of storage. What happened in Nasik? There was a failure of the storage capacity. So that you have to understand, it is more of a problem of management of logistics, transportation, storage, distribution, and the way Delhi government is acting, that Delhi is the only state in the country. All other states don't exist. Is this the way can country function?
Okay.
If they are, you are already, is Delhi the only state in the country? Is Uttar Pradesh not a state? It doesn't.
Sir, I'd like to end.
After that,
Sir, I'd just like to end. I'd just like to end with, okay, sir. I'd just like to end the show with, when you talk about is Delhi the only state in the country or Uttar Pradesh is, no madam, I need to close the show. If Uttar Pradesh is the only state in the country, are they the only one? Sir and ma'am, try to talk to somebody who's standing outside with their loved one, trying to get a bed which is oxygenated and even that bed runs out of oxygen. Try to tell them, are you the only one who needs oxygen? There are others. It doesn't work like that because it seems the citizens of the national capital are all just to themselves. They have to fend for themselves. I appreciate you both for joining us. I wish we had more time, but we're going to continue to keep up with the story day in and day out. We'll do it again tomorrow on To The Point. Thank you for joining us. Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.